Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of EyeOnOshkosh. I'm your host Cheryl Hentz. Very pleased to be welcoming on this edition two candidates for the upcoming election of Common Council members for the city of Oshkosh. On this show we will interview two candidates, and the next two subsequent shows we'll be interviewing the other three remaining candidates who responded for council, and all four candidates who are running for school board. I will state that Jacob Amos is also running for Oshkosh Common Council. I sent him 2 emails. He didn't have the decency or common courtesy to respond to either one, so he will not be appearing on this show. The slots are all filled now. So from my perspective, I can't personally support a candidate who can't respond to an email. So anyway, that's my little soapbox. I'll get off of it now. The spring election is April 7th, and please make sure that you're registered to vote and that you do actually vote. If you'd like to see if you're already registered, or if you are registered and you'd like to request an absentee ballot, you can do that by going to myvote, this is screwed up. Let me start again. myvote.wi.gov. I have not been drinking. That's just, I don't know why that was so tough to say. myvote.wi.gov. You can also contact your local clerk, whether that's the city of Oshkosh, town of Oshkosh, whatever. So anyway, that being said, the two candidates who we have here tonight would be to my right, Logan Jungbacker, and to his right, Meredith Scheuermann. So thanks to both of you for being here. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having us.
So why don't we just start by you guys taking a minute or so, and not real long, but just telling us a little bit about yourselves, why you're running for council. Go ahead, Logan.
So I am Logan Jungbacker. I was born here, raised here. I am the youngest of 5 children. I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters. I went to school at UW-Madison, studied history, philosophy, and I've been working in finance for the last 10 years. I am running for council to bring practical experience, a forward-looking mindset, and collaborative leadership to City Hall. I think it's important that we look at how we can make Oshkosh an affordable place to live, grow responsibly, and also make sure that our government's running efficiently, effectively, transparently, and with full accountability to the public. And I'd be honored for your trust and your vote this spring.
Okay, Meredith?
So Meredith Scheuermann, graduated UW-Oshkosh, left as fast as I could, came back 3 years later, and have lived here ever since. Proud mom of 3 kids, 5 grandchildren, et cetera, et cetera. Live in the same house I did, little 1,500 square foot house that I did, raised a wonderful family, and here I am today running for city council like I did 20 years ago, because I want to help Oshkosh continue to be a great place to live and do business. And for me, what that means, I think we're at a crossroads. I think that you need collaborative leadership, people who can work together on the council to get things done. Easily stated.
Okay. Which boards or committees, if any, do you guys serve on right now?
I currently serve on the board of directors for Downtown Oshkosh Incorporated, which is the nonprofit managing organization for the current bid board. Okay. And I was a former bid board member before we created the nonprofit managing organization. So.
Okay, Meredith?
6 years on the Planning Commission, current member, and 2 years and a half on the Redevelopment Authority.
Okay. Is that still in effect?
Mm-hmm.
It is, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So I guess we'll start. Logan, you want to bring a practical mindset. You want to see that, the city is functioning efficiently and transparently. Meredith, you're saying we're at a crossroads, and we've got other things to accomplish here. So I guess, Logan, to your point, do you feel that we're not running efficiently and transparently right now, and that we don't have, an amount of practicality on the council?
I don't think we're running completely as effectively and transparently as we could. I think that's something we need to constantly work on and evaluate and make sure that we're moving in the right direction for that. I think the new communications department is an important part of that, and making sure that we're sending the right message, we're communicating to everyone about what's happening in the town. I know people don't like surprises. They don't like when things get thrown on the agenda and there's not a lot of time to digest or debate or talk about it. I think that's an area where we can improve. And from a practicality sense, I think it's important to have people in leadership that understands both policy and execution. It's one thing to have all these great ideas. It's another thing to say, all right, how do we put this into action? And so that's where I come from. I've worked with a lot of municipalities throughout the state in my work and my employment doing development. I see good, bad, and ugly of what works, what doesn't, and where things can get caught up. And my goal is really to make sure that things can run efficiently, smoothly, and really that saves the taxpayer money, because when things are moving smoothly and effectively, there's more confidence in what's going on in City Hall. People feel more comfortable investing in Oshkosh, going through the motions, pulling a permit, whatever they need to do. And so I think that's the goal. I think we need to have a high target. You know, the saying is, you chase perfection and you catch excellence. And I think that's the kind of mindset we need to bring to City Hall.
Okay. So Meredith, we're at a crossroads. So what are the crossroads that we're at, and how would you, I guess, bridge that particular set of crossroads?
Sure. So I think we did a great thing last year with the property taxes. For the most part, I think overall they went down about $100 for most people. It's hard to keep property taxes flat and still be a visionary and accomplish a lot of things. And I have been very vocal about how I want to continue. I don't want to be the get on the council and all of a sudden the taxes go up. I want to continue that flatness. But that takes real diligence. And as things come before us, probably the biggest thing that's coming before us next, I would think, is city center. And so, you know, what does that look like? I don't know, because everything's been in closed doors, but I'm pretty sure there's a high price tag on that. So, you know, how do we pay for that? What does that look like, et cetera? So that's the crossroads. Like, how do you keep things moderately flat and yet check off all the things that you want to do?
Sure. This is going to be a little awkward. I'm just going to ask you, Meredith, to move your chair a little bit closer to Logan.
Okay.
The light is not catching you all that well, sitting as far away as you were.
Okay.
So sorry to the guys
Is
in
this
the
good?
control room and we may have to adjust cameras, I'm not sure.
And we like each other, so
Yes,
that's okay.
this is fine. Yeah.
I was
We're in
just
good
noticing,
company.
you know, there's a black camera there. You were kind of in the dark a little bit, and I thought, oh, we can't really see her. So,
Okay.
plus your hair's black, and so
There you go. That looks,
I
there
think
you go.
maybe it's a little bit better now.
Okay.
So, okay. So, well, who on the current council would you each say that you most relate to? Meredith, go ahead.
I think it just depends on what the issue is. I'm incredibly data driven, and so Joe is probably the strongest from a data perspective. You know, there's some social causes that I like as well, so there are others that I may lean towards, but it really depends on what the issue is, not so much the person.
What are the social issues that you're concerned with?
I'm concerned about affordable housing.
Okay. And we will definitely be chatting about that. Anything else?
I was passionate about the train. I'm passionate about pedestrian safety.
You mean the train in the park, the
Yes.
little kid train? Okay,
Yeah,
yep.
the kid train and pedestrian safety and walkability, some of the softer things, and so whatever.
Okay.
So for me, it's more about the issues
Okay.
at hand.
All right. Logan, what about you? Is there a council member that you particularly kind of identify with?
You know, that's a tough question. I have a good relationship with all of the council members now, and I appreciate what they've been able to do. I think they're all pretty receptive to different ideas. So I wouldn't say I align more with one more than the other. I just think I actually work well with all of them and appreciate what they're trying to accomplish, and the fact that they're thinking critically about the issues, and there's no real personality there. And that's something I want to bring, and I think we really need to push that and move it forward on the council on the dais, because it shouldn't be, we can't bring a personal agenda to the table ultimately. We got to listen to what people are telling us and be the voice of Oshkosh. And so I think they're all doing a good job of that, and they all have their own skill set. And so, again, all of them have come from different backgrounds, which I think play an important part in how we come to decisions. But I wouldn't say I align with one more than the other. I think I work well with all of them and appreciate the perspectives that they bring.
Okay. One of the things that I've heard from some citizens, and I personally feel this way as well, that the current council we have is very much a rubber stamp for anything that is brought forward from our city manager or from other department heads. As long as they say, oh, this is the next greatest thing, you guys should, really consider this, they just stamp, stamp, stamp. How would you respond to that?
You want me to start?
Sure.
I think that's an issue. I do think it's an issue. It's been.
I'm sorry. What's an issue? That
the
they
fact
are rubber
that,
stampers?
Well, I wouldn't call them exactly rubber stampers. I think one thing we need them to consider more is to criticize and have more dialogue about what's coming through the agenda and not just kind of go along with staff recommends. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a very recent change. I think we are going in the right direction. But with that, consent agenda items and stuff like that, recently I wish there was some more discussion on some of the contracts that came through. That's where it can be opaque. And what I really like is a conversation up there, because that's where people watch the meetings, and that's where people get their information. And I think it's important for people to speak their mind on how they come to decisions and what they're approving. So at least there's an understanding and people can relate to, hey, that was my thought, but it looks like that's the information I needed. And so we need to put that out there. So I don't want to be a rubber stamp. I think you need to push staff to be better, and also give them direction. And you shouldn't be afraid to stand up and speak your mind, and just kind of go through the motions to get out the door in an hour. You shouldn't be afraid. I mean, you have a job to do, and the job is to be critical and be the voice of Oshkosh and bring that to the table. And you got to do that through open dialogue and debate.
Okay, excellent. Meredith?
Similar. Transparent and honest communication is one of my tenets. I'm a communications major. I believe that they do a lot of the critical questioning and that. They just don't do it the night of. I think that they do their due diligence and then they come to the table. And I think there's a perception problem that, yep. Whereas, like Logan, I think that they need to, and they did this, like I think about the license that just went on Tuesday. I was like, okay, now you need to, because I could just tell by some of the comments that somebody was for and somebody was against, but every single one said the why. Mm-hmm. So I was happy, but I was like, okay, it's your turn. I was like leaning in like,
yeah,
you need to speak.
I think that's very important.
Yeah.
And, that's why I've always thought it's important to, you can ask questions before the meeting in order to help save time at the meeting. But I think that those questions should also be asked, at the meeting, so that the citizenry understands, hey, this person's asking this question. Great, I'm glad they did, because I'm wondering those things.
Exactly.
After all, it's the taxpayers in this community who pay the freight. Your meager salaries, if you're elected, and every staff member's salary who works within the city of Oshkosh confines. So it's important that those opinions and those questions and those viewpoints of the citizenry be respected.
I even think you can say, I've been getting questions about this, and I hear the concerns that the people are bringing forth, and I'm going to vote this way anyway. I mean, I think you can even incorporate some of that. It's really simple communication. It's just they need to do more of it. That's what I would say.
So, Meredith, you served on the council
I did.
for, was it 2 terms or 1 term?
1 term.
1 term. Okay, and that was how many?
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
To the election, yeah.
Okay.
20 years ago.
We ran for council at the same time back then.
We
It was, I think, the largest slate of candidates that ever ran. It was something like 19 or 20. It was a huge slate of candidates for sure.
Wow.
We thought 11.
I thought, we thought
this was big, and
That's funny.
somebody did tell me it was the largest slate of candidates that ever ran for city council in Oshkosh. How would you say that your viewpoints, your perceptions, how you feel about the way the city is running and the direction in which it's going, how would you say that's changed in the last 20 years?
Yeah. 20 years ago, it was very different, and the world was different. There was no social media. The world was different. But the issues are still the same. I went back and watched a segment when I was on 20 years ago, and we were talking about a garbage fee, and now it's a wheel tax. You know, it's a different fee. We were talking about Riverwalk, and now we're talking about City Center. So that part is very similar. I do recall 20 years ago, because I was inexperienced, I sort of just, maybe I was the rubber stamper too 20 years ago. I don't know. You know, I might have been.
I think you were.
Yeah, I'm okay owning that.
Yeah.
Which I think is why one of the reasons why I should earn that credit, because I've learned from that. I can get in there and I know how, especially being on planning and RDA, I mean, that economic development piece I'm pretty good at. And then again, 20 years at a bank, so my financial acumen. I remember the budget. I remember it's like this big, and I was like, okay, that sounds good. I'm just being honest. Where now, ask me the allocation for the Parks Department is. It's $7 million in 26 and 27. I just looked at it before I got in here about something else, but it's different.
Okay. Well, obviously, I can't ask you that question.
Logan wasn't born 20 years ago.
I was born. I was very.
But
I was
barely.
paying attention. I was around. I was paying attention. I was watching TV. I was watching your show. So.
Well, what do you each feel about some of the changes that we've seen within the council recently? We've seen things not being voted on the same night that they appear on the agenda. We've seen restructuring that I think is still probably going on within City Hall. We've seen the hiring of, his title is it's Communications and Engagement Manager, I believe, which that's a fancy title to say basically he's the talking head for the city, and I don't mean that with any disrespect, but he's the one who apparently is going to be in front of the media. I don't know that, but I think that's pretty much why he was hired. So how do you guys feel about the direction that this city is going?
I think the direction is good. Ultimately, I appreciate what Rebecca's been able to do. I also think Sarah at Community Development's been doing a great job and kind of changing the culture there from how do we get to yes instead of kind of no, we've never done this before. And there's this new kind of energy that I think is coming, and I appreciate the communications director's new position, and I think it's a broader scope than what you've kind of put forth in your question. We've been here for a long time, and since I can remember, communication with the city and the lack of transparency or understanding of what's going on has always been a complaint. And I think we're finally taking steps to address that, and that probably looks like a full-time job, and putting it all together. And also, we have a lot of different departments, and instead of sending people to different areas, we need an entry point so that someone can come to City Hall, can approach City Hall, and get the right message and understand where to go from there, instead of just kind of sending people to different departments. And from a direction standpoint, with all the changes happening, I think it's necessary to look at how we can be more efficient, and I think that's what Rebecca has really taken on. It's ultimately saving, I think, money. It's making us operate at a better pace. It's saving the taxpayer money, and it's also kind of pushing us in a direction that focuses on growth without just raising taxes. And how can we,
I want to follow up on just a couple of questions here based on a couple things you said. Who is this Sarah that you've referred to?
Sarah Rutkowski, I think I'm saying it right.
So she's
the community development director.
Yes.
She's after Kelly Nyforth.
Yep.
And she has a great background too. She runs the inspections department, community development.
RDA.
Mm-hmm.
We work with her through the bid department too.
Sure. So you had said that Sarah is helping the council get to yes.
No, not the council. I didn't mean that.
Okay,
I mean she's talking about the department, and because
okay.
inspections and community development and
Okay.
when people
All right.
want to do stuff in Oshkosh. She figures out how to get stuff done, basically.
Okay,
So if you
gotcha.
wanna build, invest, develop, how can we add resources to our community.
Okay, well, I'm glad you clarified that,
Yeah.
because I was thinking, no, we don't
Yeah, no,
always
that's-
need to get to yes. Sometimes we need to say no.
Well, no, and
to
staff
certain
shouldn't
things.
be, and council should not be directing staff, and there should be a delicate relationship there, right?
Right,
I think
right.
it needs to go to the manager. Our job is to manage the manager, and then make sure that we're speaking from the community's voice, and that's how it should go, and it should not flow the other way, and it's a pretty direct line of communication.
Okay. Meredith, what do you feel about the direction right now?
Yeah, I'm okay with the direction as well. I think this is a small thing, but I think that people get tripped up on their titles, because to say you're a communications director and engagement development or whatever that is, I mean, I feel like we should have a communications director and then sub-bullets under, they have a job description which includes development, grant writing and development and things like that. Same thing with Anna. Anna took over the...
Explain who that is. 'Cause
Yeah, I
people
can't
don't
remember
know.
Anna. She's got a big long last name. So
She's with the museum.
museum and park and she's endowment too. She's got
Yeah.
like 2 or 3
Yeah,
things.
Yep.
I think people, I mean, I know it sounds small, but people get tripped up on that. When she got hired or promoted, people are like, what do we need this da-da-da-da for? And then I had to go back on social media and explain, well, she actually 2 people had left, so she's going to be doing sort of the job of 3 people. But they thought that it was a new hire because it was a new name. So again, I think people get tripped up on communications director. Like, why do we need a communications director? Well, it's actually going to save money. I mean, we're paying
How?
because we're paying these fees for all this marketing, consulting and marketing on Facebook from all the different departments and things, and all that's going to be streamlined into underneath. I'm sorry, forgetting the guy's name. What's the communication director's name? Whatever the
Is it Ryan or something like
Let's
that?
call him Ryan. I'm sorry, I can't have
Well,
it in mind.
whoever.
Yeah, but that's all of that work and money is going to be consolidated under him, and he's going to have a budget. And
But there's still this city will still be putting out bids for people to, whether they go to the university or somewhere else. They're already contemplating doing something like that, I believe, with respect to what we should do with City Center, or if we should do something different here and forget about City Center. This council, I have never seen a council, whether it's the current one you served on, or something 30 years ago. I have never yet seen a council that has operated in a vacuum, that has not reached out and spent tens of thousands of dollars on studies. And I fail to believe that money will be saved.
Well, the studies are different. I mean, that's a good topic, because I think that bothers me the most. I think a lot of, especially with like the North Jackson Street study, we paid a lot of money for that, and what became of it? Nothing.
Right.
That's
Who-
the point.
Who's
Yeah.
even heard of it?
I didn't know there was a study up for
Our
North
viewership
Jackson.
or our listenership.
But that's why I think that's kind of the old guard legacy leadership, why we're moving in the right direction. I think a lot of it is we're actually putting things forward that we need, and these are turning into action points, and that's the progress we need. And I think that's the leadership we need to step into place to continue that progress and make sure that it's one thing to spend all this money on a study. It's another thing to actually take what we learn and put it into action.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your concern about that. And with communications, as long as I've been alive, everyone said the communication with City Hall has been abysmal. And so this is a step to focus on that very issue. I don't think it's necessarily about the marketing. It's all wrapped around it. But again, with the studies and everything, there's 2 different tracks here. Some of it is just for economic development. It's important to let people know where the opportunities are, and we can kind of broadcast that. It's another thing, though, when we're talking about walkability, how can we improve our infrastructure, and we actually have to take those studies and act on them.
Sure. Because otherwise it's just money that you could have just thrown into Lake Winnebago.
It's just hot air, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's, we've brought up City Center a couple of times. So let's talk about the future of this Oshkosh Media. For those who don't know, we are based in City Hall, within the City Hall building. It's actually the old police department for people who have been around here forever and ever and ever. Hard to believe, Meredith, you would know this, hard to believe that this little area used to be our police department. It's not just this room, of course, but this little area occupied by Oshkosh Media. So, what does each of you think, and Meredith, I'll start with you. What does each of you think we should do. And maybe we can't make a decision without having a study or something, looking at it from a wider perspective. But, do you think that there is merit in renovating this place? I mean, we have done a few things in recent years to kind of bring this building up from where it had been. Or, do we look at leasing space over at City Center? Do we look at, finding land somewhere and building a brand new city hall and raising this and selling the property to someone else? What does each of you think about that?
So a couple of things. First of all, because everything's been in closed door, we know very little. So that's the first thing I would say. So these are all more ideas than action plans, because if it's going in one direction, the council has to sort of go with that direction and without knowing. But in saying that, I think it's two separate things. I think the taking over of City Center, I think is actually a good thing. Gaining control and taking over the City Center, the city doing that, and there's a plan, and having developers help us, and then we lease back, and there could be mixed use, there could be rental or residential, excuse me. I mean, I think that's a vision. That City Center's the size of downtown Neenah, so it's a big piece of parcel property that we should acquire. However,
So you're suggesting taking over the whole thing?
I don't know. Could they donate it to us for $1 and then we take over the?
No one's going to do that.
The contamination.
No one's going to do that.
You know what? I don't know. I don't know. But I think my point is I'm separating it.
Sure.
Do I think City Hall should relocate to City Center? I don't think that's a good idea. I think we should look at costs. So I believe our choices are renovated here. Could it go to East Hall, which is the park off, UWO owns it. It's the park off of Jackson, this monster space. They want to, my understanding is they want to offload that park. It's over by Vel Phillips.
Okay. all right.
So there's a possibility there. My favorite property is actually across from the city garage, the old Cub Foods, right on the, water riverfront.
But that's owned by the college. That's owned by the university, right?
I know. Yep. So maybe it's for sale. I don't know.
I think we'd have a tough time wresting that away from them.
Well, I don't. It used to be for parking over there with the decline in enrollment.
Yeah,
I don't know. Or there's even a city park. Maybe we consolidate a city park. So I mean, we've already got the land for that.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding you then.
Sure.
You're suggesting, if I'm hearing you correctly, that we possibly take over City Center, but not for the purposes of relocating City Hall. We take it over for other purposes, development, lease back, that kind of thing, and then do something different with this building.
Yep,
Is
I'm
that
talking about two
okay?
separate things. Just like we had to
All
take
right.
Marion Road over, we took that land and then we developed it, and then all of a sudden all these apartments. I think your apartments over.
Yeah, that was a little different. I mean, that was environmental issues too. I mean, that was a heavy lift. That was a move away from industrial. City Center is a tricky one because it's office retail. I think ultimately, again, we need a lot more information. We're all just kind of shooting out ideas at this point. I think the way I approach it is we got to look at the cost and what outcomes we're trying to create. All of our policies have to be outcome oriented. We got to look at what are the results we're trying to achieve, and again, what are the costs to get there.
Okay.
And I don't know I just don't think the city should be a developer.
Okay.
It's not their role, and it's not our role to pick winners and losers either. I think we need to look at how our city grows and grows responsibly, and whether that means picking up distressed assets so redevelopment can happen. That's a possibility, but again, you need to make sure what are we getting out of this, and what's it going to cost. I think we should be looking to how we can bring in strong jobs with strong wages, so that or create new housing opportunities for all sorts of different products.
Yeah, I
whether
definitely want to talk about that.
whether it be condominiums, apartments, townhomes. And so I'm open to solutions. This used to be the high school as well. This
many
city's
years
gone
ago.
through many cycles. Real estate and land, it's cyclical. And so we really need a long-term view. If we do anything, we need to be thinking way out into the future and understanding that what we do, there could create new obligations. And so there's a lot of pieces to the pie that we got to be. And we need
Okay.
to tread lightly but responsibly with a focus on what are the outcomes.
Sure, sure. One of the more contentious parts of the budget process that was just gone through a few months ago was to cut the budget of money that went to the Oshkosh Area Humane Society, and it was cut by about, it started out at, I think, 43%, and then I think it got whittled down to being cut by about 40%. But basically, and that came at the suggestion of our Chief of Police, Dean Smith, and our City Manager, Rebecca Grill, and all under the guise of, oh, we're going to save taxpayers' money. That is so far, the needle is so far buried on my BS meter, that is ridiculous. What it ended up saving to the taxpayers of this community is probably pennies per year. And I don't think people totally understand. I don't think those two really have a clue of what all the Humane Society does. If you guys were elected, would you consider, and I word it that way because you can't on your own make
No,
a
you
decision.
can't.
So would you consider bringing forth something that would, reinstate their budget if they're having problems? Now, if they're making do fine, then that's fine. But if they're having problems and they come to you at budget time and say, we're struggling here, is that something that you guys would consider reinstating?
Yeah, completely. I mean, I understand they just signed a 3-year contract. At any point, we can work as a council together to re-amend that. And I've volunteered at the Humane Society myself.
Good for you. Thank you.
I appreciate what they do. I think they really dropped the ball on this.
Yeah.
They were chasing
The council?
the
or?
council.
Okay.
The council for not realizing one, that people were shocked and saddened, and it really didn't fit with what the priorities of people wanted. From all my conversations I've had, people value that. So if we're trying to say we can't sacrifice quality of life in these important services for the sake of lowering taxes. So that's the balance that we need to make, and that's the part of being responsible with the budget, is understanding how do we maintain quality of life, but also how do we keep things affordable and not create new obligations for ourselves.
Sure.
And part of that is looking at who's providing the services to our community, and how can we support that and be part of the solution, and not simply just hacking away so we can say that the levy's flat.
Well, and if the council dropped the ball on it, then I would have to say,
Well,
since things run downhill.
I don't want to point a finger on who dropped the ball.
I believe that the ball was dropped, starting with the city manager and the chief of police. I don't think that they really conveyed things in an appropriate manner to the council, leading to the council kind of rubber stamping things, even though there was discussion.
Exactly. I think there was a failure in the chain, and so it was a collective failure ultimately.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's why you need a critical thinker up there to say, hey, wait a second, what's going on here? Because things start moving and there's momentum, and they're like, all right, we're keeping things flat. We're doing great on the budget, and they don't realize that there's this insidious factor in there that people are not going to appreciate.
Right. Meredith, I know you want to jump in.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, I agree everything that Logan is saying. We cut 6 or did not fill 6 positions, and not one single person talked about it. And that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. But we cut 47,000, I think, and a year later, people are, I guess we're 8 months later or whatever than the budget, 6 months. That's what everybody's talking about is Humane Society. I mean, they're still talking about it.
Right, because it tugs at people's heartstrings.
Right.
That's what, that is what is important to people.
Yeah.
And saving money is, yes, that's important too. But when you hit them in their heart.
Yeah. And the thing is, we can come back. I mean, we can be proactive about that. We can do that, not us, but ask for them to come back and give us a presentation and ask them how they're doing and what is that money, and prior to the budget.
I think that's important.
Yeah, prior to the budget, so we don't get into the budget and that gets overshadowed.
Sure.
So.
All right. Okay, speaking of our city manager, I'd like to know what each of you feels is Rebecca Grill's, or whoever is sitting in that chair, what do you view as the role of city manager?
She's like the chief of staff. She's the CEO of a...
I know that, but what is she supposed to be doing? And here's where this is coming from, is because, and I've heard this from a lot of people out in this community, people feel that she hides from the media. Since she took over in that role, she has effectively, I mean, there's a few little city manager reports here and there, and she does something called the City Manager Minute. Yeah, you can sure accomplish a lot in a minute. But she's done away with most of the city manager reports, and that was a good way to communicate to the public, like you were saying earlier, Logan. That was a great way for the city manager to communicate with the tax-paying public and the ones who maybe don't own property here, but they're still paying taxes through their rent or whatever the case may be. And so people don't necessarily know what's going on because that is no longer there. She committed to coming on this show quarterly this year, and within a couple weeks or so of making that promise, sitting right there, she reneged on that. She completely backpedaled, and now she's not going to do that because she was uncomfortable with questions about where she lives and what her salary is and the raise that she got and so forth. So there's a lack of transparency, I think. She's taking away opportunities to be transparent. She's hired someone to be the communications person. So as CEO then of the city, what do you each feel her role should be? And are you comfortable with her level of presence within the media?
I am comfortable with her. I view her role as administrative. I think I don't think she should be a politician necessarily. I think there's other ways to get the voice of what the city's doing out there, and I want her focused on the basics of running the city. I mean, that's why we have our form of government, and I think that's where she can excel. And if she doesn't want to be in front of a camera, she doesn't have to be. I think there's the mayor, there's the council, there's the communications department. There's lots of ways to get out what we're doing, and I want her focused on the numbers, the people, the process. And so us as council can give her direction to execute. And I want her to execute what she does well on. And if that's her focus, I'm okay with that. But again, we need to keep her accountable to the results. So ultimately, it comes back to council. And if we're not getting the results we want or we need or the community tells us are important, we need to make sure that that accountability goes through Rebecca, because ultimately the buck stops there.
Okay, I understand exactly what
Yeah.
you're saying, but when she says that she wants to communicate with the public more, and she outlined some of the ways in which she wanted to do that, but then she does things that are in direct contrast with that, how is she communicating then to the public if she's taking away some of the ways in which she could, and I believe should be, communicating with the public?
You're saying because she's not on TV, or,
Well,
I mean, there's different ways to. I can understand. It's hard to be good at everything, and I think people have different strengths.
Yeah.
And
Okay. I
we
can
can't hold them
accept
back for a certain.
Well, I
think
can
there's
accept
there's
that.
a level of acceptance and understanding with where people are at. Also, she's new and she's getting her feet under her. I think she's running. She has hit the ground running from what I've seen. But again, as council, we got to make sure we keep that accountable. We can't lose steam. Yeah, we can't lose steam on any of this. So we got to hold our feet to the fire.
Sure.
And she, from my conversations with her, she's more than willing to rise to the challenge, and we just got to keep that attitude and make sure it's consistent.
Okay,
So.
Meredith?
So just two things I would add. It's kind of fun. You say it all, and then I have to find something to add.
I'll start with you next.
Good. What I would say about Rebecca is I think she's doing a fine job from a communication. I actually we saw her at 3 events, nighttime events, in the last 60 days, and panels like school board, I saw her at UWO. She came to Rotary. So
She's doing forums.
Yeah, so I've actually seen her a lot in the last 60 days, so I haven't experienced that. I also recently started getting the city manager's newsletter on every Friday, right? You know about that?
Meredith, of course I know about that. I've been getting it for years.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. So there's
and I'm not impressed with it, but
okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's a quick snapshot of 2 or 3 highlights that are going on in the city. If it needs to be more, then I think that goes to the council. And here's the deal. There's like mid-year reviews, right? And even if it's not a mid-year review, they can certainly have a closed-door conversation and say, hey, we really think that this is an opportunity for us to do better. So I think we're not privy to, the conversations and the promises that she's made to you, but what we've seen, it's good.
Okay. Well, and I'm not complaining just about that issue. I'm complaining just overall about her, what appears to the citizens, many citizens, who have complained to me about that they don't feel that she is communicating well to the public. And the only way to do that is through the media.
Well,
When you take away the city manager's report, that was a great vehicle for her to do that. And that's essentially been
Meredith
been done away with
brought up a
too.
great point. I've seen Rebecca out a bunch, so that's why I'm kind of struggling to understand this. I think also with the communications director, I mean, she's at these events. One thing is we need to market the events better, possibly. I mean, she was at the neighborhood association meeting. She's been doing forums. I have seen her out and about, but maybe people don't know that. People don't know that, and so I think that's how we can kind of address
Right.
that and make sure people know where she's going to be, so they can.
Well, and if that's, and I'm one of those who doesn't know that,
So we gotta- that's a problem we
so
gotta
you guys
address.
do need to,
Yeah.
if you're elected. The council, whoever is on there, does need to be better about promoting that, and she needs to be better about promoting that.
And as part of speaking up at the day, as in not just saying, all right, yes, no.
Yeah,
It's having
yeah.
those conversations when there's any comments from
Yeah.
council. Hey, this is happening.
Yeah.
Being that voice.
So what else, as CEO of the city, do you view as something that is part of her role? Go ahead, Meredith.
Hiring, firing, having strong department heads, making sure they're efficient. I feel like there could be a couple of more restructures coming. I don't know that. I have no inside knowledge, but generally, I come from a corporation perspective, and when you do a consolidation and efficiencies here, you do it almost always across your organization. So that could be. So for me, that's a big deal. And then all of the work she does to continue to promote Oshkosh, to make sure we are business friendly, we're ready for growth. We say yes, to people coming into our community. So I think it's multifaceted for sure.
Okay. Well, and this is not on me. This is something that the citizenry has, they've been talking about, and it has to do with her job. The pay that she's being paid for her job. And, she negotiated a $9,000 a year raise before she was even hired. That raise to become effective after she'd been on the job 6 months. People were pretty upset about that. And of course, I said, you need to be more upset with the city council about that. Kudos to her for having the cojones to suggest that.
Well, at the same
But
time, how
shame
much
on
were
the council for rubber stamping that when she hadn't even worked a day yet. You don't know how she's going to pan out.
how much were we paying the previous?
I don't know,
manager?
but that
It
shouldn't
was a
have.
lot. It was more. It was a lot
It
more.
shouldn't have anything to
I think
do
we
with
actually
that.
had some savings on her
Okay,
coming in here.
but it shouldn't have anything to do with that, Logan. Who in this viewership or listenership has started a job and at the place where they're hiring you, you say, well, thank you, I'd be very happy to accept this position, with the proviso that after I've been here 6 months, I want X dollars raise. And you haven't worked one day on the job. You have the hiring people have no idea how that person is going to perform. I've never been in a position to do that, and I would venture to say most people haven't been.
So
go-
I have
so
a
go ahead.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we set her salary is $150 and she in 6 months she gets $9,000, is it more palatable to start her at $159? I think so. I mean people are upset at 6 months. It's not uncommon in the business world to have some sort of incentive or bonus.
But it
midway
is
through.
uncommon in any world, business or otherwise, to be guaranteed that pay raise before you've even worked one day on the job.
Yeah, it's uncommon.
That's what people are upset
it's
about.
uncommon, but the council, that's how they got to.
I know, and
to
that was a
agreement.
rubber stamp.
I
And
don't
shame on
think
the
that
council
I
for
don't
doing
think that I'm going to push back on that. I don't think that was a rubber stamp. I think it speaks to the caliber of person we were trying to bring. And sometimes you have to be competitive.
And you have to be creative in your offers.
Exactly. And look at and
That's
since
common.
we're both appreciate what she's been able to accomplish. I think we had a flat levy in part from what she was able to do in the short time she was already here. And so you have to be competitive in the marketplace. And if you want good leadership, you have to be realistic with what's out there. And I think that's part of it.
And there's also a chance that she wanted it up front and we held it back and we said, we'll give you part of that in 6 months. Those are closed doors negotiations, but it's not uncommon.
Well, it is uncommon.
Creative salary negotiations are not uncommon. And
Okay, we're not going to agree on that, Meredith.
okay.
Okay, so what, as you're out there campaigning, are you hearing from the constituency about what their concerns are about Oshkosh, where it's going, what the taxes are at, the so-called wheel tax? What are you hearing from folks? Meredith,
Yeah.
go ahead.
There's two sides. There's governance and there's grievance. The grievance side is real. Don't raise my taxes. Everything is affordable. I don't want all these apartments. I mean, there's a whole, my streets aren't safe. The inspection department is difficult to work with. I mean, you hear a lot of grievances.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is that people say, this is a great place to live. I love Oshkosh. I love the downtown. I love the farmers market. I can't wait to see what's going on in City Center. Oh my God, Mill and Main is going to be so great. So there really is two sides. I hear two real voices, and I call it grievance or governance. That's what we look at here.
Okay, but what issues are, I mean, those things that you stated, are those the things that people are upset with, that they're telling you?
Affordability, property tax. I
Okay.
mean, I haven't heard wheel tax. Personally, I haven't heard wheel tax.
Okay,
But property taxes and affordability probably are the top two.
okay. Logan, what are you hearing?
I think affordability is on everyone's mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's housing affordability, it's the cost of groceries, it's everything that goes into that. There's only so many things we can do from a local level. We can't control interest rates. There's inflation. There's a lot of these macro economic forces at play.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also, housing affordability is one of the biggest things I hear. As
Yeah.
I've been knocking on doors, talking on porches and out having coffee. I think the biggest thing that's where council can make the biggest impact is, looking at our zoning code and how we can make it easier to build in Oshkosh, allow more products to be built in Oshkosh.
Grow the tax base.
Grow the tax base.
Keep the taxes flat.
But also, more importantly, to make housing affordable, we really need more supply. We need different types of products. We need people to come and feel comfortable living in different housing products, whether it be a duplex, triplex, apartment, single-family home, townhome. We need to make it so that families can grow and get that extra bedroom, that seniors can downsize when they can't do the stairs anymore, and that opens up a house for someone else to come join the community,
Sure.
or for that family to grow. And so we need to make it easier for all this investment to happen, and I think that happens through the zoning code, through streamlining the permitting process so people feel comfortable pulling a permit, working on their house so they can stay there, they can age in place if they need to. That's where we can create the most effect. Otherwise, we really need to reduce the cost of living here.
Sure. I'm glad you brought up about the zoning code, because I too totally and wholeheartedly believe that we need different kinds of housing products out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there is, I think the city's doing a good job toward moving toward things that low to moderate income folks can afford, but I think we need to do better. And so, would you support redoing the zoning code so that we could build more tiny homes? I know we've got that lot north of town, but that's for a specific sector of
Cause,
people.
yeah.
Not anybody can take advantage of that. So, but if people are downsizing, maybe someone wants to go into a tiny home, but there's nothing available. So would you support a zoning code change to be able to allow something like that?
Yeah.
There's an RFP out there for right now for a zoning code.
Request for proposal,
Yep,
RFP.
Yep. It's out for solicitation right now because we do that on I think it's an
For which lot?
just the zoning code, like our whole ordinance, our whole book of.
All right, let me ask this, and maybe you know the answer, maybe you don't because you're not on council. But if we're looking at redoing the zoning code, why are we putting that out there for bid?
Well,
why can't we
already
do
done,
it within the city structure itself?
We've already done a third-party assessment. There's a massive matrix study looking at our zoning code, and they came up with 72 suggestions to improve
north
it.
of 60, yeah.
But now we're looking for, we've got another RFP out there?
I think the matrix is more about, isn't it about the inspection department and permitting and fees? And this is more zoning. This is like, how can what size lot can you fit and what size housing? So two different, I think matrix is different than the RFP that they're putting out for zoning.
Who's putting out the RFP for zoning?
I'm trying to think the plan commission gal. She works for Sarah. I can't think of her name right now.
But someone within community development.
Well,
I specifically asked in the last 2 weeks,
But see, why do we have to do that? Why are we, these people that we have very talented employees at City Hall.
This is something I'm most comfortable with, is approaching the zoning ordinances and code. I deal with this a lot, and
Sure.
I think it's very simple when we talk about tiny homes. It's as simple as making an auxiliary dwelling unit.
Yep.
You know,
ADU.
an ADU.
Accessory.
Accessory, and we've done that. We've made incremental steps, but it's not moving the needle. I think
Yeah,
this is really
that's the
just
thing.
maintaining things.
Right,
And
right.
so we really need to start implementing from the matrix study. There's 72 suggestions. Not all of them. You can't. You have to be strategic about how you roll things out. But you really need to make it easier. It also comes down to lot lines, setbacks,
Yeah.
stuff like that, so that we can have smaller lots and build different products. But we also need to be intentional about what kind of products and how they complement the neighborhood. Kudos for the community development department for also making a design guidebook.
That's
I
super
hope it's a
great.
draft, because I've read through it and it needs some work. But it's still just sending the message that, like, hey, here's how we can create infill lots, and those are the most important ones. And that's where our focus needs to be, is because there's infrastructure that is already there. We're not building new streets. We're not building utilities, which is just going to add more obligations to the tax levy. But we're really just adding value to our core, looking at our zoning, how we can create different products in there, maybe allowing egress and ingress. There's lots of different ways to look at it.
Sure.
But we need to implement it. We've already done the studies. We need to start actually taking
Yeah,
action.
I don't think we need any more studies. We don't need to spend more money on studies. We've got talented staff. You know what you're talking about because you work with this day in and day out. So let's not spend money on more studies that a lot of times the cities
Exactly.
or the studies come back and they're looked at and then they're put down and they just gain dust.
I think they're going to be actionable. That matrix study that was done, was a third party audit, and it's actually, I believe, in Rebecca's review. Like, there are, I don't know if she's got to get this percentage of them done or she's got to get a number of them done, but I believe that that's been placed inside of her. So
Okay.
so that's not going to happen this time.
Okay, all right. We're also challenged because we're landlocked.
For sure.
So we at some point have to start building vertical, more
do.
so than what we have been.
Townhouses.
And that might mean some buildings of tiny units.
Well, what is called is missing middle. There's a
Yeah.
whole
Missing
product.
middle.
Missing
I like
middle.
It's called the missing middle.
Missing middle.
I've talked about this on my Facebook page and on my website. It's between the single family and the mid-rise that you're talking about. The high-rise podium buildings. There's duplexes. There's cottage neighborhoods. There's pocket areas, garden style. Triplexes. There's all these different products out there that are very difficult to build because of the cost of building right now.
Sure.
And so that's why we need to look at the zoning code so that we can at least, from a regulatory
easier.
standpoint, make it easier to get that process through. And also, so we can have local developers, local people in our community who can invest and take on some of these projects, because some of the times it's harder to get capital looking in from outside
Sure.
to take on some of this missing middle kind of smaller projects, which are what we really need.
Okay. Wow, I see we're down to about 5 minutes, and that does not give me much time to find what else to ask you guys. Well, I'm going to go to TIF districts.
Yeah.
Logan,
We-
stand
That's
up.
We
a-
have
Another
used a
one.
lot of TIF districts over the years. And, at some point, a community, the state sets how many TIF districts you can have or to what degree
A percentage
you
of
can
your-
be, yes, to what degree you can be invested in TIF districts. My complaint for many years, back when we were running for council together in 2005, I think at some point you're going to get tiffed out, and you've got to find other tools to use in your toolbox that you can use for development. So what other, I'm talking to you specifically because this is kind of what you do. This is your jam. What other tools do you think, Logan, we should be using?
We don't have many other tools. I think we need to be creative with how we use TIF, and we need to be responsible. And where it comes is like the developer agreement. You know, kudos to how we've moved in the right direction with like what we've seen with Merge and Jackson and Pearl, where there's timelines associated with the increment that you're creating.
Pay to go.
Pay to go. That's
I brought that up. I will say this. I'm going to
Yeah.
pat myself on the back for that. That is one of the things that I brought up, and I was the only person I think who had ever even heard of it. I brought that up 20 years ago.
That is the standard now throughout the state. I mean, you have seen some communities do aggressive upfront increment payouts, and I don't think we're there yet. I think we need to think about what the proposal is, and we're always, when we use TIF, we're looking at horizons. You know, because there's the but-for test. This is not going to happen but for the use of TIF.
Right.
And so we need to think about what are we trying to bring to the front? What do we need now? When we're using TIF, we're using the future value of that project to pay for something today. And so they still pay taxes. They're still going to be on the tax roll. What we need is smart TIDs constantly closing, because as they close, it's a waterfall on the tax base.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Meredith?
Not really.
Okay.
There's not a lot of tools.
There's not a lot of time left either, so.
Just be a more welcoming place. Make sure people want to come and build and live here.
Sure.
And
The other
do a
tool
little
is
bit of
the
that.
zoning code. Just make it easier so people don't need TIF.
There we
Not
go.
bad.
We're back to that thing again.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to just throw this out here. The wheel tax was mentioned earlier. That essentially, or a vehicle registration fee, that's the official formal name of it, but people call it the wheel tax.
It's the wheel tax.
So, that was put into place so that people wouldn't be getting these assessments when their road gets repaired or when a slab of sidewalk or two have to be replaced. But I don't think that it is inherently fair to the people who are really wrecking the roads, the big semis, those types of vehicles. With about a minute and a half left, would you support maybe revisiting this if you're elected?
I'm open to revisiting it. I hear that's something that I hear a lot. The other side to that is the costs are going to go up, because if you start taxing the Amazon drivers and the dump trucks who are building the new houses in Chet Riesenberg's new subdivision, if you start doing that, you're going to be adding costs. So I'm open to. I would say yes. I'm open to revisiting it.
Logan?
I'm open to revisiting it. I think it's important that we always look at our fee structure and make sure we're actually accomplishing what we set out to do. But I am also in support of it because I think it relieved the burden. But at the same time, we need to make sure it's actually doing what we thought it would do, which is avoiding a massive tax or invoice from the city on people who are most stressed out, basically.
And enough of making sure it's the right amount.
So we need to make sure it's equitable and it's actually accomplishing what we need it to do, which is filling a funding gap to address our roads.
Okay. All right. Well, with that is it. I didn't get to most of my questions, but we did cover a lot, and I think we got a lot of good information out there. So my guests have been Logan Jungbacker and Meredith Scheuermann. Again, the day of the election is Tuesday, April 7th. Find out if you're registered. If you are, great. Kudos to you. If you're not, get registered. And most importantly, vote, 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 whether it's early voting, absentee voting, or going to the polls on that day. But it's important to vote. Local government is sometimes most important when it comes to your tax dollars. So thank you to my guests, thank you to my crew, and thanks to you as always. We will see you next time. Until then, take good care, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.